Okay, so I started recording because we're going to begin. So, welcome everybody. There will be some more people joining us, and you also can come and go as you please. This is a casual training, there's no certification. You're going to get a diploma saying that you sat here every hour and I could see you every hour. So, come and go as it's comfortable for you. I'm Dr. Maya Alapin. I'm not a medical doctor. Very important disclaimer because I live in Quebec. So, welcome. What we're going to do today is learn, and tomorrow and the next day is learn advanced conversational hypnosis. I'm going to teach it to you so that you can actually use it right away. Not in a year, not in 3 months once you've practiced, but like Monday morning, you can go and use it. How I began making money with it is I started charging people right after I learned it. So I really mean it when I say this is a course that's going to teach you how to use it right now. That being said, just keep in mind that this is not an accreditation course. So you cannot call yourself something like a certified hypnotist after this. There are certification programs that you can sign up for. And if you want ideas on that, you can go ahead and ask. But that's not what this is. This is a training course. I'm a trainer. So I'm going to teach you a skill. I'm not going to certify you. I want you to take a moment before we get into the nitty gritty of it to just acknowledge that the kind of person who comes to this, the kind of person who's here, is already the kind of person who's good at the skill I'm going to demonstrate. And why I'm saying that is because if you didn't have that kind of soul or that kind of imagination or that kind of heart, you wouldn't show up for this. So I can tell you already that you're going to be able to do it and you're going to be great at it. And I don't mean that there are people who I disqualify from that category. I just mean notice that by selecting yourself or coming, you've already shown that this is the right place and the right kind of skill set for you. So everyone is here for a different reason. I don't need you to all be here for the same reason. Some of you are going to open a business like mine. Some of you are going to attach it to a current business that you already do. Some of you are going to use it on your friends and family. Some of you probably don't know what you're going to do with it. You're just curious. And whatever it is that you're going to use it for is perfectly fine. What I want to say about it is whatever it is that you choose to use it for, you're going to notice that you get faster at that thing. So if you're trying to communicate with somebody, you're going to notice, oh, I can speed up our communication. If you're going to use it for sales, you're going to notice, oh, I can get my customers and clients to give me answers quicker. If you're going to use it for therapy, if you're already a trained therapist, you're going to notice, wow, I can go so much faster than I could with the system and product that I had before. So I definitely think the magic of ACH, which is advanced conversational hypnosis, is very much related to reliability and also speed. This is a results-based exercise. So everything that I've learned and the success of my business has not been proven through books or theories or whatever. It's been proven through experience. So I know it's kind of hilarious because you all know me as like having gone to all of these educational, institutions and heavily educated. But actually, the beauty and the magic of my business has been based on the results that I get. And I think most of you are here because you've seen them online or you've heard me talk about it or you've been watching these, amazing 5-star reviews come out one after another. And I want to acknowledge that I myself am blown away by them. It is amazing. And that's exactly why I'm here, because the results speak for themselves. So if you are skeptical, if you're not sure, whatever it is that is on your mind right now, all I can say is wait for the results, both in yourself and in your clients and in the practicums that we do today and tomorrow, because they speak for themselves. So everything that you learn is going to be proven through results. I'm going to tell you a little bit about how I started, and then I'll give you kind of the housekeeping rules for the next 3 days. So Most of you have known me for some time. If you don't, then I'll tell you a little story now. I was a real estate agent until about whatever it was, 5 years ago. Then I moved here to Canada with the two kids. And I always knew there was some healer inside of me. I've always known that. Peggy has known that for a long time. I've been working with her for 2 decades now. And so it was kind of a question for me of like, what discipline or what kind of method could I use given that I was educated in academics? So I became a traditional hypnotist. I went to just the regular, Hypnotherapy Academy of America. I learned how to use scripts. I have all these binders full of papers, and that's traditional hypnosis. And so the vast majority of hypnosis that you'll encounter in your life and hypnotists you'll encounter in your life, although there are few and far between as it is, but the ones that you do know and will know will tend to be of that traditional method. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing objectionable about using scripts. It's totally legit and it does have its place. It's how hypnosis has been done for centuries and certainly the last number of decades. But I got super frustrated with it very quickly. For one thing, it takes a long time, like usually 6, 8, 10, 12 sessions. So it's time heavy. Also, if you're a fast moving person, as I am, and a high energy person, there's only so much I want to repeat and reread the same thing, right? So it got boring and monotonous for me. Moreover, I did not feel super confident when people were showing up because, for one thing, how do I know this is the right script for them? For another thing, what if they come and then tell me, well, I was here for weight loss, but I've actually started eating better since I last saw you, which happens a lot. As soon as people see you, they change what their, main goal is. So actually, let's talk about, smoking today. And so then you're sitting there with your prepared scripts for weight loss or whatever it is, and you have no idea what to do. And you're like, holy shit, I'm going to shit my pants right now because I don't know what to do instead of what I had planned for. So I found that that got old like really quickly. So I got interested in conversational hypnosis, which is the, creme de la creme, the AI of hypnosis. And it doesn't, oh, Jim, can you let in that new person, please? And it doesn't depend on all of this preparation, script reading, and all of this, rigmarole. So, what we're learning right now, ACH, is developed in Australia. It's in the vein of Milton Erickson, who is the grandfather or father of hypnosis. And as you may or may not know about Erickson, the really amazing and cool thing about him was that by the end of his career, actually by the middle of his career, you could really kind of just be in his presence and he already knew how to help you. And there was very little that needed to be said. So, conversational hypnosis, although there's the conversational aspect, you'll notice is quite light on suggestions, it's quite light on words, it's quite light on conversation, even though that's in the title. So, we're moving towards that Ericksonian model or that Ericksonian presence. Why that's cool is, for one thing, it's easier on you, less to prepare, but also it allows you to come with a ready-made confidence because you're not depending on a protocol or a bunch of paperwork or a prediction or a suggestion or an induction or whatever it is that you think you were, going to rely on. It really relies on your presence of mind and your ability to track the subconscious mind. So it's a lot easier. It's a lot funner. Funner, is that the right word? It's a lot more fun. And it's a lot less stress. So that's how I got into it. And there was no looking back for me once I learned that you can be with the subconscious without predicting or planning for it. So I think of what I'm doing right now as kind of revolutionary, not only because we're subverting the traditional hypnosis model, the paperwork, the scripts, and all that, but also because, as I was chatting with some of you this morning about this, I really do believe that hypnosis is a natural state of mind. There's no doubt about it. It's been used in advertising, it's been used in politics, it's been used in commercial, sales forever. It's kind of monopolized by a group of people who use it for their own purposes. And we, the general public, tend to either not notice it or not know that. So, educating people in the way hypnosis actually functions, I think, is an act of revolution, because what I'm saying is this is a power we all have. This is a power we all have available to us. So, why don't we claim it and show others how to use it to get out of their problems? So, to me, this is an act of feminism. It's a political act. And I think it's a significant act of humanity to say, hey, let's all get in touch with the part of us that can heal not only ourselves, but others. So I think that you being here is kind of a symbol or a evidence that you yourself want to reclaim some part of yourself or some part of your power. So that's what you're going to do. You're going to learn radical faith in your subconscious and in the subconscious minds of others. And hey, by the way, I'm sure you've all noticed that I have a little bit of a scratchy voice. I'm actually better now. My kids, of course, were sick earlier in the week and I got it too. So if I mute at some point, it's just because I'm coughing or whatever, but the illness was a few days ago. So do not be too concerned. I know you can't get it through the screen, but don't be worried for me either. I have done everything I can to prepare for today. Okay, so house rules. I just want to go over a couple of rules. Obviously, we're going to be kind to each other. Don't be judgmental. Don't make this course about you. Don't take up all of the talking time. I am recording, so think about that when you speak. Think about that this is becoming part of a library that's going to be available to others. So what you share is something you want to be considerate and thoughtful about. Also, if you have family in the house, if you're going to be screaming to the next room, bring me my coffee or whatever, I'm going to have that all recorded. So just be aware of that. Turn off your screen if you need privacy, if you need to take a break, if you need to go for a stretch, if your back's hurting, get up and walk around. Just turn your screen off so that you're not recorded doing all of that. Everyone here is a grown-up. Everyone is already educated in health and wellness, I think, across the board here. If you're not, the main rules, of course, are take care of yourself. That's the most important thing. Eat when you need to, have water when you need to, go to the bathroom when you need to. You don't need to wait for permission. You don't need to wait to let us know. I will have breaks during the day. I'm going to have today broken up into hopefully 3 segments. It's a little bit hard to predict based on the demos, but that's my plan. So you will have time to go get some food or something. If you want to bring your lunch back with you, no problem. You can eat in front of the screen. Again, just be aware that I'm recording. Use the chat, which is on the right of my screen anyway. So if you don't know where to find it, there's a little chat box at the bottom. You can use it at any time. If you have something that you want to ask, but you're not sure, is this the right moment to ask it, drop it in the chat. And my amazing, cool assistant, Jim, will bring that to my attention. I'll introduce Jim in a second. But you can also use the chat to share information with each other or actually to just chat with each other. I will turn it off during the demos to avoid distraction. So Jim is my assistant, Jim Grimm, also an amazing friend and mentor of mine. He knows a ton about what we're doing today. If I ever lose my connection on Zoom here, he will take over. You can appeal to him for help directly in the chat if you need something, or anytime during the weekend. Thank you, Jim, for coming. I really appreciate you. Okay, so a little bit on the demonstration. So yes, I am a theoretical person, so I will be giving you theory and I will share my screen and I will do some talk instruction, but I really want this course to be caught, not taught, if that makes sense. Caught, not taught. So what I mean by that is it's a vibe, it's a feeling, it's a knack. You know that word knack with a K, K-N-A-C-K. It's a word that Socrates used a lot about, how we learn skills. So it's one thing to learn a skill out of a book, and that's how traditional hypnosis tends to be taught. But what I really want to do for this weekend is show and hear and see. So this is very much caught, not taught. The reason I'm saying that at the outset is because the demos are so valuable. So I want to say they're instructional. They're also evidence that it's working. They're evidence that how this works. The main and easiest way for you to learn this method is to volunteer during the demo. You can volunteer to be a client. You can volunteer to be a practice therapist. Whatever you're doing in the demo will be educational for you. I don't care if you make mistakes. I don't care if you do it correctly. I'm not going to even give you instructions for some of them. So you're going to really be out in the wild, kind of guessing and feeling your way through with my guidance. And that's all okay. So I just want you to get comfortable with the idea that the demos are educational. You don't need to expect anything from them. You don't need to expect a breakthrough. You don't need to expect hypnosis. You don't need to expect trance. You don't need to expect anything. You don't need to expect a problem to get solved right in front of your very eyes, although you might see that. So let the demo be fun for you. Let it be informational and instructional for you. And that's all to say, volunteer. It's really important to volunteer. So you can just begin right now by clearing your mind of all the preconceptions you have about what hypnosis is and what you expect this to be. If you've already watched the videos that are in Kajabi, this is really similar. This is not going to be like a whole new class. It's a version of the same thing, and that's exactly what it's supposed to be. So the live presentation is meant to give you a place to come and experience it, try it out, ask questions. But you can learn this process just as well by watching Kajabi. So if you've been here before, like I see some of my previous students, you're not going to say, oh, wow, this is a whole new version of ACH, because it's not. So it's meant to be a repetition. That being said, the more you watch it and the more you observe, the more you'll catch on to how it's done and how it feels. So I've watched hundreds of hours of these myself. And all I can say is the more you get involved in it, the easier the instinct will come to you. Perhaps you've already had a session with me, or perhaps you are familiar with what my sessions look like from watching the demos. I want to say one thing about that before we begin, which is inside of my sessions, they're not just ACH, they're ACH and MACH. And MACH I'll talk about on day 3. I'll teach that later in the year in May. So it's kind of like level 1 and level 2. You really need this one first, so that's why you're here first. But when you see my sessions, you might think to yourself, oh, that's a little different. It's not exactly what I expected. And that's because I do this all day, every day. And my sessions have other things and other elements in them than just this pure ACH. So don't be worried by that. Don't be concerned by that. That's something that can come to you if you want it to, either by taking MACH later or just by practicing on your own. Okay, so I want to say we're living in the era right now of Chat GPT, and we're living in the era of, all these amazing AI simulations and all of this crazy stuff. And although ACH, I think, is not similar to that in its whatever form or delivery, it's similar in the sense that hypnosis has gotten to a point where you can study it enough to take out the pieces that are really valuable and really effective and repackage them. So ACH is a repackaged form of traditional hypnosis, very much like how all AI is a repackaged form of all kinds of various things that have been learned in the past. So I do think that ACH is the AI of mental health care. And I think that you're going to see when it's in action what I mean by that. What I mean by that is it's like the faster, more compact, more compressed, more affordable battery, like the Prius battery. So it really is a modern form of, ancient millennia old practice. And it's important to really recognize that, especially if you're going to sell it and use it with the public, because that's what's going to set it apart. That's what sets you apart from every other kind of hypnosis that's available in the world today. So, with no further ado, I will stop for questions. If you ever have one and I'm not stopping, you can raise your hand or put it in the chat. So, this is where we are, Advanced Conversational Hypnosis with myself, Mama Soul Doc. Okay, so module 1, the new frontier, the hypnotic interview. So I said this is going to be a repeat of the past courses, but actually it's going to be a little bit different because I'm going to start today right away with the meat of advanced conversational hypnosis. And the meat of advanced conversational hypnosis is the hypnotic interview. Okay, so what do I mean by the new frontier and what's going on with my guy here climbing Mount Everest? So I tell people sometimes during the discovery call, and I'll discuss with you the discovery call on day 3. I tell people, because they ask me a lot of the time, like, well, am I going to do everything? Are my eyes going to be open? What's going to happen? So I tell them this is a lot like going up Mount Everest, okay? So we're going to do something really incredible, which is hike up Mount Everest together. It's a once in a lifetime thing. It's not something you're going to do all the time. But I am going to be the Sherpa, me, the hypnotist. You are going to have to walk, okay? You, the client, are going to have to walk. I will not drag you. I will not walk for you. If you stop walking, I will stop walking. So I tell them all the time, this is going to be amazing and I'm going to be there with you the whole way, but you're going to do the work. You're going to actually be the one to do the trek. That being said, I will help you carry your bags. I will carry the map. I've been here before, so I know the way. And I also know the way back. Okay. So I know the way there and I know the way back. You might not know either, but you're going to follow and walk the whole way through. How I do that trek up Mount Everest with the client is basically through this very simple thing, the hypnotic interview. And why I call this a new frontier is because the hypnotic interview is itself going to be the whole hypnotic experience. And by that, I mean it's going to include priming, it's going to include induction, it's going to include deepening, it's going to include the actual trance. So everything that you might expect needs to be done separately, as in with classical methods of hypnosis. And if you don't know what I'm talking about right now because you're not a hypnotist, that's okay too. But if you do know what I'm talking about, usually we have priming, preparing, induction, deepening, trance, reinforcement, all kinds of steps. So the new frontier is the hypnotic interview is going to take care of all those things all at the same time. So it's a lot simpler for you. So this new frontier of trekking and of going somewhere that you've never gone before is not as hard as it seems because we're just going to do it with one simple tool, the hypnotic interview. Okay, so if you're muted, I want you to just go ahead and unmute yourself for a moment if you're wanting to participate. I just want you to tell me, what do you know already is a problem with traditional hypnosis? What are some problems with traditional hypnosis? I already said some of them in my preamble. Takes a long time.
Like you never really know where it's going to go.
Yeah, you can't predict it. It's not super dependable. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, like someone comes with an issue, but it could go a million different ways.
Yeah, and what does that create in you? Hey,
And
do you want me to, is Luna the appropriate name, or is that your
that's
complete?
my daughter's name. I'm not sure
Oh,
why
okay.
it's I'm not sure why
I
it's
don't
there,
want to
but
call you the
my,
wrong thing. Okay.
my name's Elise.
So what does that do? Like you do hypnosis, you do traditional
Yeah,
hypnosis. Like what's the problem with not knowing?
it creates this feeling that I didn't really do my job well enough or something like that. Like I didn't get to where to help them enough. That's how
Right.
I felt.
Yeah. Both afterwards, you feel a little bit of like, did they get their money's worth? Are they going to be mad at
Right.
me? Did I screw it up? And also, what about when you're going into it? It also creates a problem, right?
Yeah. I mean, sometimes it's really good. Sometimes it's really like, did I help you? Or did, kind of that feeling, I
Oh, and
suppose.
for everyone here who's not a hypnotist, what is the prep like for you? What is the whole workup to it like? What do you have to do? Oh, I was asking you, Elise, what do you have to do to get ready?
Oh, I thought you were, okay. I thought you said everybody.
No, I'm saying
Well,
'cause not everyone here is a hypnotist, but you are.
okay.
So I just want
Well,
them to know what's
what
the
do um, the, the prep or the problem? I'm sorry, I missed that.
what's the problem with the prep, I guess is the
Oh, the
question.
problem with the prep is that like it's too much of me thinking what the problem is that I'm going to try to solve, like putting myself into too much of me when it's about them. Like what can I do to help you, and or
I
something like,
totally agree.
you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Sort of, sort of.
A guessing game.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
That's
it's a guessing game, which is really stressful because they're not even there to guess with you. So you're
yeah,
literally sitting in your office thinking, should I use this one? Should I use this?
yes,
Will
exactly.
they like this? Then you read it, you're like, well, I mean, and then you have other weird problems. Like sometimes scripts say something like, and you're, floating in the ocean. And then the person shows up and is like, I'm phobic of the ocean. And you're like, oh, I thought I was going to use that to relax them. And now they're telling me that's going to scare the shit out of them.
Exactly.
Going to work. And then you're thinking, well, what script will I use now that I've seen it, knowing that it's not going to be the one I thought. So these are some of the problems that traditional hypnosis brings. So far we've said takes a long time, not super dependable. When they leave, you're not exactly sure if it worked or did you use the right protocol. I mean, even picking, as Elise said, like it's kind of hard without them sitting there, or even if they are sitting there, it's still hard to predict like which script, which image. I mean, there's literally tens of thousands you can pick from. What else? What are other problems with traditional methods?
Me still? Am I still talking? Or still
Anyone, anyone, yeah, it can be you, but anyone. What did you say? Oh no, Gail, I tried to eliminate those. I don't know why there's pluses and minuses. I don't know what's going on with those, but thanks for asking. On my visuals, there's like a negative and I don't know what that is. I think my technology has just all crossed in incorrect ways. This computer is a different model than the one I created it on. So no significance to that. I like that Tiani has an answer, but that's not the answer.
Can I chime in though?
Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, my camera's still off, so sorry about that. But what I experienced as a hypnotherapist before joining ACH, the tools that I was using were very cookie cutter and it didn't work for everybody. So like there were some people who there are certain things that just really didn't work for them. Doing parts therapy, doing inner child healing, doing all that stuff at the subconscious level. It was like specific tools that I would lean on, like, oh, okay, this person sounds like they have this issue based on, I could tell it's an inner child issue. So let me use my inner child tool, right,
Right.
in my mind. And then in them, they're like, it's not working. I don't know what you're talking about. This isn't like, that's not resonating. Can you turn that down, baby?
Yeah.
That's not resonating with me, right? And I would feel really stuck. And I'm like, okay, so what do you need then? Like, I don't know.
And I mean, that's a real issue too in terms of posture, because, a lot of hypnosis has to do with rapport and posture, which means that they really depend on me to be helping them and that they trust me. And if I start with something that they're like, dude, that doesn't work for me, then I lose that edge right there and then. So, right there and then, I've lost their confidence, and it's impossible, literally impossible to regain it. So it's a huge risk that you run, exactly what Tiani just said, which is, hey, let me tell you my expertise. This might work for you. And then they're like, I don't like it. And then you're thinking, wow, now what am I going to do? Now I'm screwed, right? Moreover, to build on what Tiani said, what I'm noticing in my practice a lot is I've become popular with people like lawyers, doctors, CEOs, like really expensive, high moving, high producing people. Well, guess what? When you get a lawyer in here who's in the middle of a trial, who's trying to say quit smoking or quit depression or whatever, and you tell them, okay, and now hug your inner child and, let's, they're like, go fuck yourself. I'm not doing that. I don't want to do that. Thanks, Gail. But I mean, that's what happens. They're just like, what? I don't like that at all. And it might not even be as extreme as a hug your inner child. It might just be like, okay, here's my chair right here that I use. So maybe they're sitting in it and I tell them, okay, now close your eyes and relax. And they're like, I have a trial tomorrow, like I don't have time to close my eyes and relax. And so then they're closing their eyes, pretending to relax when really they're more and more stressed out because they don't like that feeling and they don't enjoy it. And you're forcing them. And guess what happens to the subconscious mind when you force it? It does not respond well. It's just like with a kid. When you tell a kid, no, I mean, their initial, if you tell them with reasons and with rationalization and with comfort and kindness, it's okay. But if you just tell somebody, do this, a child, an adult, or whatever, the initial response is rejection. Like, no, you don't know who I am. You don't know that's going to help me. And so I think and I'm not saying that this isn't universally true, but especially with highly analytical people, they don't want to be told what to do. Nobody does. I mean, does anybody here? Do you want to be told what to do? No. So traditional methods tend to be instructional. They tend to be belittling in a certain way. And I don't mean that in a mean way, because as I said, I'm trained in it and I've used it and some of it is great and works. But overall, it does put you in a weird situation on all of those occasions that we've outlined, which is people don't like it, it doesn't work, it's not the right thing, it's not the right technique, it's not the right problem that you're even prepared for. So, all of this is to say that traditional preparation is kind of high stress and high pressure on the practitioner, which is hilarious because here we are saying, oh, it's hypnosis. It's so like, easy and fast and relaxing when all the while we're over here stressing out about our ability to create transformation. So, what's beautiful and great and magical about ACH is that it removes all of that. So, you're never going to have to be stressed out again. Wouldn't you like that to just never have to worry about a client ever again and never have to be prepared, so called prepared? And I mean, obviously, as the days go on here, I'm going to show you how this actually works. What's the protocol? What are we going to do? So I'm not saying that you just show up and, be yourself. That's not it either. But you don't do the traditional preparations anymore, ever again. So all of the stuff that that you've learned in the past, you can go ahead and just forget it right now. And if you don't know anything, then you're at an advantage, which, by the way, for everyone who doesn't know anything right now, I'm not kidding you when I say that's the advantage that I had starting out. So everybody wants to know, like, what's my secret? How did I build this, amazing business so fast? I mean, some of it is that I'm good at it. Some of it is that I have, natural intuition, whatever. But a lot of it is that I didn't have to unlearn a decade or 2 decades of other methods. So if you don't know any methods right now, more power to you because you're about to learn the best method on the first go. Okay, so here we are. The conscious mind loves to guess. Essentially, humans are going to guess at what they're feeling and experiencing because they think that they can figure it out. At the same time, why do people ask for help? Because they don't know. Like, that's the hilarious thing about when somebody shows up and says, here's my problem, is automatically I'm already aware that they don't know what they're talking about. Like, here's my problem, X and Y. Okay, well, if that's your problem, why don't you solve it? So maybe that's not your problem because if you knew what your problem was, wouldn't you just figure out how to solve it? So they don't know how to solve it and they don't actually know what the problem is to begin with. So where does their problem exist? Where do subconscious, or oh, I gave it away. Where do problems exist? Where do problems come from? Just say it again so that we have it all out in the open here. Where do problems come from? Where, yeah, unmute though, Gail.
Subconscious.
Like Gail's trying to give us unconscious moments already by being muted and screaming. Yeah, problems exist in the subconscious. How do we know that? How do we know that that's where they exist?
Can I take a guess?
Yeah, of course.
Because we're trying to solve them in the conscious and it's not working?
Exactly. So if you come to me and say, I want to quit smoking, I'm sure I want to quit, and yet I've tried a million times in the past and I can't. Well, then didn't you just tell me that consciously you know what you want, but it's not working what you thought you wanted? So that's not exactly it. Isn't that true for every single problem that people bring? I mean, phobias are an interesting example too. I'm afraid of spiders. Okay, so you know you're afraid of spiders, but what's behind that? How did you get afraid of them? Why? There's got to be some explanation that's not conscious. And by the way, people will tell you, "Oh, because my grandmother, blah blah blah," and when I was 5. And it's like, well, if you know that and you know that you're afraid of it, then how come you're not unafraid of it? So that's not it, or that's only a piece of it. So people will tell you their conscious belief of why they have a problem. But I already know that if they've analyzed it and they've kept their problem, they've missed something. There's something they don't know about their problem. So bottom line is all problems are subconscious problems, even problems that people think they understand and explain to you, which everybody will do, by the way. Just get used to that. Every single person will give you a long, long explanation for why they have their problem. Everybody thinks they know. So that's part of this business, is just getting used to the fact that people think things at one level, but that's the whole reason that they're coming to you, is because they need more help. So all problems are actually subconscious problems. We know that problems exist in the client's unconscious or subconscious. And by the way, unconscious, subconscious, those are the same thing. Superconscious is another term that, is either inside of the subconscious or another level of the subconscious, but all of those will put in the same category. So if problems are subconscious, we're back to what I just said at the start of the conversation, or 5 minutes ago, which is, how can you prepare? How can you prepare to solve a problem that a person has no idea what it is? So if someone tells me my problem is smoking and that's their conscious problem, and then I prepare a stop smoking script, and then I read them the script, and then that didn't help because that wasn't actually the problem, then what was actually the good of them coming in? I just told them more about their conscious problem that didn't do anything. So you can't prepare, because what people tell you at face value is not true. And it's not their fault, by the way. And all of us here have had a problem, right, that we've tried to understand or explain. So we're all doing that. I'm not saying that we're exempt from it. We all do that. How can you prepare a script if you don't know what the actual problem is? It makes no sense, right? Now we're starting to think like, oh yeah, traditional hypnosis is weird because it's preparing to solve something that you don't know what it is until the session actually begins. So why would you do that? That makes no sense. How can you apply a pre-planned technique to something that has not been explored yet? That's the main question that I'm asking you this morning in this first module. How could you possibly do that successfully? So that's why I'm starting the lesson, not by telling you the structure of ACH or how to do it or giving you instructions. I'm just telling you this one basic thing as your module 1 learning, which is a hypnotic interview is just as easy as learning about the problem. Why would you want to learn about the problem? Because what the person thinks the problem is, isn't. So all you need to do as your main mission is explore and understand the problem. That's it. Literally, that's it. So I want you to ignore, I know now we're getting already into the hypnotic and crazy part of the course, which is you're in a hypnosis course And what I want you to do is ignore hypnosis, ignore trance, ignore problem solving. Like that's the exact opposite thing that we're told to do when we go to traditional hypnosis. In traditional hypnosis, it's like, okay, quit smoking, need my quit smoking script. That's the problem solving. So I'm telling you, don't do that. Don't even try to solve the problem because you don't know what it is. So if you attempt to solve it without any idea of what the actual problem is, I guarantee you're going to end up with a result that's not favorable. So this slide is probably the most important slide of the entire weekend. And I love this young lady here who I don't know who she is. The slide is so simple. Ignore trance, ignore hypnosis, and ignore problem solving, which is what you're paid for. You're paid to be an expert at hypnosis, and you're paid to be an expert problem solver. And I want you to just completely 100% forget about that. So forget that you're even thinking about hypnosis at this point. We will get to it, but not right now. We will get to it, I promise. I will not leave you without understanding where the hypnosis part is, but it's not at this juncture, okay? So hypnotic interview is just as simple as investigating the problem, learning about the problem. Think about this. When is the last time you met two friends or two people who both have anxiety for the same reason? Everybody has it at some point, right? So let's say they come to you and the problem is anxiety, and then you get out your anxiety script, right? What would that even mean, given that nobody has anxiety for the same reason as the next person? So this slide, I've made this pretty picture here, of an open cafe or whatever. That's what you are when you're sitting with a client, is you're just like an open opportunity for them to sit down, like at a cafe, and just talk about the problem. And all you're going to do is allow this conversation about the problem. That's it. We stretch out the process unnecessarily by listening to the conscious mind. So we tend to think, oh, well, they're coming to me for smoking. Let me ask them everything that they need to know, or I need to know about this problem they perceive that they have. And so then we listen to all of this conscious information and we apply our own assumption to why they have that. So this picture here, anybody know why I have this picture of the trash collection? What am I trying to say? What do I want you to trash at this point?
I'll take a guess.
Yes, it's your subconscious doing it. Go ahead.
I would think that it's the surface.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, just whatever's on the surface. But the problem is how did it get on the surface?
That's exactly right, Gail. See, you're a natural. I told you you would be. That's exactly right. I want you to trash everything you're hearing and trash your whole expectation that you know what to do about what you're hearing, because you don't. So the best way to help the client is to put aside your script, technique, strategy, assumption, and to ignore the conscious fluff that the client is sharing, because that is also leading you astray. So the very important piece about the hypnotic interview to remember is the soul's solutions are individual. And my company name is Soulsway. And I actually named it that before I even fully understood what I meant by it. But what I mean by it is each soul has its own way. And if you recognize that each one is different, that's when you become a really well-respected and highly paid expert at this, because you've moved away from this cookie cutter idea that everyone's problem needs to be treated with a certain technique or a certain approach, because that doesn't work. It just doesn't work. So soul solutions are individual. The soul's way is what you're looking for. And how are you going to find somebody's soul's way? Can you do it through your own head? No, because it's not your soul that you're working on, it's theirs. So you have to listen to their description of what's going on. That's what the hypnotic interview is all about. So the skill of ACH, which I haven't explained the whole skill yet, if you're wondering when you're going to learn it, I promise you're going to learn it, don't worry. But the skill that I'm presenting today is universal and it works on everybody. And it doesn't rely on any kind of unique method or preparation. I use it on kids, teens, adults, even seniors. And I will tell you that it changes depending on the age of the client. So it's not that you use it the exact same way, but the approach is the exact same. Hypnotic interview, that's the approach. Even with a child, that's what I want to know from them is, so tell me about your problem. What's the problem? And that's all you're going to do in this first demo is remove pressure from yourself. Totally forget that you're even in a hypnosis course, anything. All you're going to do is hypnotic interview, which is explore the problem. So be curious and ask the person, what's the problem? And then ask them the next question that you have about why do they have that problem? Or what's the problem with that problem? Or what do they want instead of that problem? That's all you're going to do is just be curious about the problem. That's the hypnotic interview. So we're going to do a demo. This is not a full-length demo. This is not necessarily a transformation. This is not necessarily a problem-solving demo. When I ask for volunteers for demos, don't bring me your largest problem in the world because we don't have the time for it. Also, it's not an appropriate venue to solve major life problems. So what you want to bring to these demos is a small to mid-sized problem that you're okay if it doesn't get solved. Okay, so something you just want to explore, experiment with, look into, that you're okay to share with the group. I'm not saying it's impossible that we solve it. It would be great if we do, but you might not. So just be prepared for that. The instructions for the practice practitioner right now is just to be curious and do the interview process, trying to investigate the problem. That's it. You don't need to know anything else. I will leave my mic on, so if you feel confused or you need help or whatever, you can ask, absolutely. But I'm going to let you explore at your own pace. So, who wants to be the first practice client? Like I said, mid-size, small problem, small to mid-size is what you're looking for. This is your best place to learn this whole thing. So go ahead and venture. Yes.
It's going to be a long seminar if nobody volunteers.
Thanks, Jim. It's true. It really does depend on demonstration. So you do need to. And I will help you if you're scared about the therapy part. I will help you. I will not leave you out there.
I can volunteer.
Okay. So Leah, you want to be the client?
Sure.
Gail, I saw you lean forward and unmute. Were you going to say you wanted to do something? Do you want to be the practice therapist?
I'll give it a shot.
Cool.
Maya, you're going to have to take off screen share. There you go.
And like I'm telling you, this process is enjoyable. It's fun. So you got nothing to lose right now, and I'm right here to help you.
Who did we say is
You can spotlight Leah and Gail, please.
okay.
And everybody else, you can go ahead and turn off your video just for the distraction.
Yeah.
So Gail is going to practice therapizing right now. So Gail, your only mission is to investigate and explore the problem. And the question that we begin with every time is always the same. So what's the problem? That's what you're going to say. So Leah, what's the problem?
Okay, so my problem is that I would like to make myself accountable and make sure I leave my house every single day, even if it's just for 5 minutes or 10 minutes to see the sunlight. And a lot of the time leaving the house, I'll leave the house and I'll do lots of things, but I want to make sure every single day I leave the house. That's my problem, that I'm not doing it and I would like to.
So Gail, what do you want to know?
I'm not a therapist, so you're going to have to hold my hand on this.
Neither am I. You're in luck.
I got a background in comedy, so I'm not sure that you
Perfect.
called the right person.
And I'm not kidding you guys when I say that. I'm not a therapist either. I'm not a trained therapist, so none of us are. It doesn't matter. So
I guess my first question would be, if that's what you would want to do, why aren't you doing it?
Good. Excellent question. See? Perfect. Yeah, look at that. See, that's an unconscious moment. She just gave it to you. Beautiful.
So that's why am I not doing it? There's lots of, I don't know. My first, why don't I go outside?
Perfect. You see, Gail, hypnosis is so easy.
I don't know. Well, maybe for me, but I don't know on your end how easy it is.
I have to, I think maybe I'm someone who the second I get home, I'm in my comfy clothes. Like there's no real human outdoor clothes happening in my house at all. I will get out of my clothes right away. And so I'm someone who getting back into those outside clothes, it's not easy for me to put on a pair of pants or something that's tight or like real clothes and not just loose. It's hard for me. So I think the hard part is to put on something that's appropriate to leave the house. Summer it's a lot easier because I can just throw on a dress, but putting on tight things is hard.
So if I heard this correctly, you said that coming back into the house, you put on loose clothes?
Yeah, the second I get home, like from work or from hanging out with someone, I change right away.
But if you're getting home, then aren't you outside?
True stories. So then the issue is on the days that I'm working from home.
What would happen if you went outside in your, lingerie finest or your whatever you got on?
And Gail, when you make someone laugh, it's just like gold. So that was beautiful. That was great.
Well, I do. I used to be a smoker, so I would go out like that to smoke. Now I don't smoke cigarettes, so I don't go outside like that. I don't know. I think I do sometimes, but if I don't have to leave my house for an errand or an appointment or something, I can't bring myself to just go outside.
What would happen if somebody saw you wearing something that you didn't want to be seen in?
It happens a lot. No, whatever. I don't really care. It's just, yeah. Maybe I should just get a whole uniform of muumuus. All different seasons, warm ones.
Yeah, so why don't you? Why don't you just do that?
Why don't I just I'm already thinking, I'm like, okay, I got that muumuu and that muumuu, so I'm thinking of other things.
Well, when you're home, you're not home walking around nudie tooties. You got something on, right?
Most of the time I'd be nudie tootie. I'm not nudie tootie because I'm wearing something. It's a sensory issue for me.
I see. Okay. Oh, that's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So just pause, slow down, and just think about, okay, so it's a sensory issue. She's told us maybe a whole wardrobe of muumuus. So now what are you curious about? Not how do we solve it? Not, okay, well, where are you going to buy all the muumuus? Because we're not there yet. But what am I curious about in terms of how did she get here? Why has this been bothering her? Why hasn't she done anything to change it? Genuine curiosity.
Honestly, I'm curious about the fact that if you're reluctant to go outside and you're comfortable at home and you're comfortable in whatever you have on, then why is the goal to do something different?
So you're asking, oh, sorry to interrupt you. So you're asking her, like, what does she want out of this, solving this problem?
Why do I want to go outside? Why am I making it if I'm okay at home, why do I want to go outside?
Yeah.
Excellent.
Because I hear the sunlight is good for humans. Literally only that. I'm like, well, I could maybe better my life if I make sure to see the sun every day. But when I do go outside, I take off my glasses and I lift up my eyes. And if I see the sun, I'll stand there like this to get all as much vitamin D as I can. So I am being mindful of fact, okay, you don't go out all the time, so try to get as much as you can in whatever way you're doing it.
So may I just ask a question now, Gail? So are you saying that part of your goal is for health and just to feel better?
Yeah.
Is that the overall goal? Okay.
I wanna try to do as many things in my routine or in my daily to treat my body as nicely as possible.
Why is that important to you?
Because I didn't for a very long time. And
Excellent.
now I want to do it with lots of gusto.
Beautiful. Sorry to interrupt, Gail. Continue.
Okay, well, the first thing I thought of was vitamin. Why don't you take a vitamin D?
So just let me interrupt right there. That's not a curiosity question. That's an advice question or an advice.
Okay.
So we're not solving anything. We're not thinking
Okay.
I know how to do this. We're just all we want to know is more about what she's in this predicament for, why. So tell me so far, Gail, what do you know about her? What do you know so far?
What I know is that you want to do as much as possible because you didn't for a while.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you want that as much as possible to be outside because it's healthy. And at the same time, you want to make sure that you're comfortable, that you have on something that it doesn't overstimulate you or make you uncomfortable. And what I don't know is was there a time when going outside and doing things for yourself felt okay?
Good question.
No.
So this is something that
maybe when I was a kid, maybe, but there were periods of time as well that I would not go outside.
And if you did go outside when you didn't want to, what was that like?
I guess it depends. Sometimes I guess it would be fine and it would be fine and good. And a lot of the time now as an adult, I know. So I go out, I don't know, go outside. And I go for my little walk, even if it's at night time. Often they happen at night because I like when there's not a lot of people around. I feel better. And then so what I'm doing now is I'm doing things that I don't necessarily want to do for my future self. Like, okay, I'll be thankful that I made myself do this little walk.
Do you feel thankful?
When I'm doing it, yeah, I come back, I'm like, yeah, I did a good job. Like, we're speaking of the inner child. If I were your client, we could talk about inner child, and not like you're at how Maya was saying the lawyers and stuff don't want to talk about their inner child. But I come home and I go, I did a good job. Like, I'm very happy that I did the thing that I didn't want to do.
Okay, so I guess my next question would be, because if you're doing the thing that you didn't want to do and you really enjoyed it, why isn't it the thing you want to do?
Okay, so ask it in the least number. No, it's perfect, Gail. It was excellent. I just want you to ask it in the least number of words.
Wow, okay. How does it make you feel to do something you wanted to do?
Perfect. That's a perfect hypnotic interview question. How does it make you feel? Perfect. See, there she goes. That's unconscious. Yep.
I feel good. I feel like I'm taking care of myself. I'm giving myself something nice.
And do you want more of that?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
How do you know you want more of that?
Mm.
See, there we go. That's unconscious. Good.
How do I know I want more of this something?
So this is exactly what this
Well,
is.
because it's something that I wake up and I think I should go outside. I should do that thing that I'm supposed to do. If it wasn't something that I wanted or needed, it wouldn't be a thing. Like it's an active every day. I should go outside, or I'm glad I went outside. Like it's a constant thought, or yeah. So I feel like if it wasn't something that I wanted to do or needed to do, it wouldn't be on my mind.
Are you bored of having that repetitive thought?
Repetitive thought of that.
I just mean, are you bored of like thinking it would be nice?
Uh,
Nice. See, and then we just be quiet. That's it. You're doing a great job,
always,
Leah.
I'm always very good at coming up with different reasons why not to. Well, I did the laundry, so I did a good thing. Oh, I cooked, so I did a good thing. I did this, so I did a good thing. Am I bored at this point? Maybe not, because I do lots of different things to kind of excuse my not going outside. But I can imagine that I will become bored eventually.
So every client will reveal in time, and now we've only been, what, 15 minutes with her, will reveal sort of like the patterning that got them to have this problem. And so she just gave us kind of a layer of it, which is what, Gail? Did you pick up on it?
I have so many questions. I just don't know.
Perfect. Go for it. That's all
Ask
you
these
want.
questions?
Yep.
Okay.
When you have so many questions, you're doing an excellent job. So continue.
And this is going to be blunt, so tell me if I'm doing it wrong, but is it safe to go outside?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Very nice place to go outside.
All right. Why is it so important? Can you take care of you can take care of yourself inside, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then why is it important to go outside? And I guess I'm asking because I hear you say I should do this.
Mm-hmm. Maybe because we are hypnotized into believing and told our entire childhood, go outside, go outside, go outside. When I was a kid, every day I was told, go outside, go outside, go outside, go play, go outside, go outside. The news, go outside, get sunlight, go take a walk, go do this, go do that. So I think in my heart of heart, or like my assumption or belief is a healthy, well-adjusted human leaves the house every single day. And if you're not leaving the house every single day, maybe you're not. So maybe I've imposed that on myself, thinking I have to.
So let me just stop you right there and ask you this. You just told us what you've been told as a child, that you've been imposed on this thing. But what do you think of it right now? Do you think at this point that going outside every day is favorable, or do you think that's bullshit?
I think it's favorable. The sun is good.
Right.
The sun does me good. I'm no different than a plant.
Okay, perfect. I'm no different than a plant. Okay, cool.
Yes, I believe it's important to go outside every day.
So I have a question. If you were to go outside every day, would you be making yourself happy or somebody else happy?
I like it. Good question.
Me, I literally don't give a shit about anybody else.
And just and she gave us an awesome, super honest answer. So just ask her how she's sure about that. How do you know that? How do you know it would make you happy?
Because there have been periods of time where I do a good job and I go outside every day and I'm bouncing off the walls, so happy that I did it. But then my routine changes and stuff like that. So then I get off track of going outside every day.
It sounds to me like your paradigm is I'm doing a good job, I guess, meaning, or I'm not doing a good job.
So I'll just stop you right there. Instead of it sounds to me, just ask a question.
Okay. Okay.
Do you know the reason why, Gail? Do you know why I said that?
Because it digging.
Yeah, because it sounds to me is about you, but what we're
Exactly
caring about is, I mean, what if she doesn't care how it sounds to you? So all we care about is
I don't care. It sounds like to other people.
Exactly. That's the whole thing. The subconscious mind is like, well, I don't care if Gail thinks one way or another about how I feel. So we just leave that out.
Okay, so I forgot what I asked.
Yeah, and this is normal, by the way. Everybody's already hypnotized here, so it's confusing. And if you feel like you're going in circles, it's normal as well. So you just start somewhere, just pull a new thread.
You're doing a good job.
Yeah, you're both doing a great job. What are you curious about right now, Gail?
What stops you from doing something that's good for you that you like?
Perfect. That is a perfect question.
Sensory issues. Because if we think back, it goes back to the clothes. So my issue is clothes, and that's a small thing, and I've already got a few moo-moos. So I just need to get rid of all, if maybe I need to categorize, I've been working on decluttering and stuff. So I need to have, and I have been doing this, but like a very distinct, well, they should all be outside clothes. We should be not stop. Yeah.
So don't interrupt her, Gail, because she's looking for she's right now in a very hypnotic place where she knows an answer to her problem. So don't interrupt her. Let her go for it. She
so
told
I think
yeah, go ahead.
What I have to do is clothes that I don't feel comfortable in. I shouldn't be wearing clothes that I don't feel comfortable in, inside, outside, wherever. So anything that I feel putting on my body, I shouldn't have it. So I shouldn't have that as a deterrent for leaving my house.
See, this is the most beautiful intro demo we could have possibly had because this is exactly what the whole point is. Is the problem going outside?
No.
Right. And did you know that when you started?
No.
Right. Exactly. So now, Gail, what do you know about her problem that neither of you knew 10 minutes ago?
That there's things that you want to get rid of. Your clothes.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious if there's other things that you want to get rid of.
Yeah, and I thought that was an interesting thing that she shared with us is a solution that I'm feeling right now is that I feel uncomfortable at other times that I didn't even know I was uncomfortable. But now that I'm thinking about it, why am I making myself uncomfortable overall? So now we're at an even more important piece of her soul. She's about to tell us, something really cool about who she could be, i.e., more comfortable when she makes some certain change. And now you're really seeing the power of ACH, which is, I didn't know that. I didn't know that's why she was volunteering. She didn't know that.
Mm.
So now she's going to learn something about Leah, which is pretty exciting.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. It's really cool.
All tight things must go.
What was that?
All tight things must go.
Yeah, okay. So if all tight things go, then how do you feel? And let's just tell us what that means. Do you have like leggings or like what is tight that
Yeah, leggings now, even leggings. Anything with anything that's constricting anywhere. But then there's a whole other thing, but I'm not gonna go into the whole other thing. But yeah, I've been working on the idea this year for having a uniform. Like, okay, this is my uniform. I don't have to think before I leave the house. I don't have to worry about what I'm wearing, how I'm feeling, this, that, and the other. I know that these clothes are my safe clothes. So I think I was doing that on a small scale and testing it out, and I just need to do it maybe more on a larger scale.
So what are you going to do? That's all I want to know at this point. She's telling me I solved my problem, so I don't want to get in her way, but I just want her to tell me a little bit more detail. So what are you going to do then?
I'm going to go through all my clothes and see if they're comfortable, and if they're not comfortable, they're going to go. And I've already been doing that for the last few weeks anyways.
But so let's say you get rid of everything that's body tight or whatever you call it, body conscious. Are you going to miss having those things?
It has nothing to do with body consciousness. I don't give a shit how I look. It's literally, my skin feels like it's going to rip off my body. It's a sensory thing.
Okay, and
How's it going to feel? I'm going to feel less irritated.
Perfect. Okay.
So, can I ask a question?
Mm-hmm.
So, because before you say get rid of clothes that are not safe, so what does safe mean?
Good question, Gail.
That's a good question. Safe just means like, for example, you can have safe food, safe clothes, things that you know that are not going to trigger you or be too overwhelming. Like safe for me sensory, like I know, okay, I feel fine in this. Instead of looking like, oh yeah, I look so good, and then that tag bothers me, you know? So that's what I mean by safe.
The other thing I'm curious.
This is a neurodivergent thing, I think.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
You see how Gail's in a trance now too? Check it out. Watch.
I have so many questions.
Leah hypnotized Gail now. Look. Just watch. It's so interesting. Do you see it? If your answer is no, I don't see it, there's going to be a module on that, so don't worry.
So I guess what I find interesting is that you have things that are not safe around.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you buy something, or mostly you buy something. In my case, I find something in some sort of garbage treasure. I'm like, ooh, I love it. And then you want it to work, and you want it to be comfortable, and you want it to be good. And so you hold it because you want it. But it's about, I need to let things go that are not comfortable or serving me. Like, yes, I love that dress because it's a 1960s. The pattern is absolutely gorgeous and beautiful, but it's not comfortable. And when I wear it, I stink because I sweat because it's not a real material by polyester. That's what I have to do.
When you bought it, at the time, was it uncomfortable? Was it
probably?
Did it become unsafe? Did it start out unsafe?
I think maybe I wasn't as sensitive as I used to be. Like, I'm getting more and more sensitive as I'm getting older, and allowing myself to like recognize like, oh, I don't feel good. I don't need to sit here suffering. Whereas before I would sit there. Like, I've been turning off my camera on this, not because I don't want to be seen, but literally because I'm moving around and I don't want to be distracting, because I have to. Otherwise I can't. I have to move around to focus, to listen and stuff. And I think before I was much more, I've never been compliant, but like, okay, I'm going to sit in the thing, and I'm going to do the thing, and I'm going to be still. So, and I'm going to wear the thing that's not comfortable. I mean, it could be 70% comfortable, but for me, it needs to be 100% comfortable. And I kind of would just grin and bear it and suffer just for the sake of, well, that looks professional. That looks good. I really like that. I like how it makes others perceive me because of what I'm wearing or whatever. So I was willing to compromise my comfort for something else. And now I'm not willing to compromise my comfort.
So I'm going to capitalize on this moment where she sees herself more clearly and just clarify with her. So a few minutes ago, you said, I'm becoming more sensitive. But are you really telling me I'm just becoming more self-empowered or more aware of what I really do want and like in my life?
I use sensitive not as I'm not saying it as a bad way.
Right. I get it.
Talking about it as a sensory thing, I am more sensitive.
Yeah.
I get overwhelmed more easily, and yeah, I'm allowing myself that, and I'm trying to figure out ways to reduce it as much as possible. Whereas before, I would just grin and bear it.
Yeah. So as you learn to claim your comfort and power more and more, what do you want to do about the outdoor clothes?
What do I want to do about my outdoor clothes? Uh, just have a few really comfortable, good utilitarian uniform type things that I know are safe for me.
Does that solve the outside going outside situation?
Hmm.
Are you satisfied, Gail, that she's being serious, that she really solved it?
Yeah, but I still have a question.
Okay, let's hear it. I mean, and let me just say, you can ask it just because we're experimenting. But when a client has come to their conclusion and solved their problem, that's that. That's it. We're done. So I'm gonna let. I want to hear your question just because I'm curious to know. But really,
I'm just curious. I mean, the idea of, like you said, you would just sit there and suffer, I think is what you said.
Mhm.
If I'm just curious, who does that benefit? Because it doesn't benefit you.
No
So,
one, but I've done a lot of things to benefit other people and not myself.
and now what you want to ask her about that, Gail? Are those days over?
are those days over?
Those days are gone. They've been
Right
gone.
on.
They're gone,
Excellent.
Yeah.
Good.
And so if those days are gone and you have a nice wardrobe of comfortable outside going moo-moos, would you end up seeing the sun every day as you, I know I can't wait to see you walking down the street here.
You're gonna see me walking down the street. And you're gonna be like, what?
I'll be in my moo-moo
It
and
should bring
say
joy to
hi.
everyone else. These moo will bring joy. They're just joy for
Yes.
everyone.
We'll cross paths in our moo-moos. That's what's going to happen.
And then we're gonna start a trend, and everyone's gonna be like, what? No waistbands.
I
No
love it.
ankles.
All the Gucci ladies in our neighborhood are going to go moo-moo because of us.
You're gonna get Gucci moo.
Exactly.
You're selling lots of fabric, so you can make a lot of money.
This could be your new venture. Gucci moo-moos. Okay, and so what's the problem? Now we want to ask her to revisit it. So what's the problem? So Gail, this is when you get to the point of like, well, are we done with it? Did we solve it? It only took us what, 30 minutes, 25 minutes? So ask her, okay, so what's the problem?
So what's the problem? You've identified that you're going to get rid of things that are not comfortable and that you matter and you want to be comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you feel about the problem?
I'm very glad that I volunteered. So there's no problem.
I was just going to say, is the problem still there?
No, well, no, there's a solution, and I do have a whole lack of face stuff. So yeah, no.
Okay.
It'll be interesting. I'll keep you posted.
We're going to check in with you. And that was amazing. I mean, look, you guys have no training. Gail, you have no idea what you're doing, and you solved someone's problem without any, any skill set. So how do you feel about that?
It's fascinating. It's really fascinating.
I mean,
it's I'm glad you pointed out, like my natural inclination is to solve.
Yeah.
And that's what all my training has been in is solving. So to not do that, or to be more of a, guide, I guess, it's really, it's a different way of thinking.
Let me ask this, Gail. Isn't it faster? Isn't it faster to just watch someone do it and less stressful for you to just watch somebody figure it out?
Oh my gosh, yes.
Right.
Yes.
So let's bring everybody back, Jim, if you can.
I just want to say that on a completely different level. I mean, I wear my pajamas out in public because I really don't care. So I'm just so fascinated by this.
Well, one thing is I live very close to a lot of people a lot of clients that I have.
Okay.
I live really close to, so, and I live in a building, so it's not like I can go sit on my front deck and, I have to go downstairs and sit literally a bus stop at a very busy intersection in my pajamas or in my comfies, in my whatever. And then someone goes by and go, "Hey, miss!" I'm like, to the point where a couple years ago, I started telling everyone I work with, if you see me on the weekend, this is not what I say this during the week when they see me, this is not what I'm going to look like. You're going to see me in my pajamas because I go outside, I call them my pajamas. And they're like, okay. So I kind of prime them to then not be judgy or whatever when they see Miss So-and-so sitting there looking like pajama lady.
Well, I love pajama ladies.
Nice. They're not nice. I don't invest in my pajamas. My pajamas are the
So I'm letting the two of them go on a little bit here so that you can both see that the trance is self-created, right? We didn't tell her to go into a trance. They're just in it. The two of them are in it.
When I see pajama ladies, I don't think, I'm not judging. I go, wow, to have that freedom, right on, how cool.
Yeah.
So,
Leah, were you surprised at how fast we solved it?
Yeah, because that's been a big issue.
Well, that's what I'm asking you. So I wanted to ask you, for the sake of the group, how long have you had that problem and how much has it bothered you?
Ooh, 20 years, and I would say about an 8.5 on 10. That's the thing that bothers me.
So Gail, you just solved a 20-year problem. That's an 8.5 intensity in 30 minutes with no training. How do you feel about that?
there's a logic to it. It just I feel really privileged
Yes.
that somebody would trust me, first of all, enough to even be answering my questions.
And here's an interesting question, because everyone who's here who's been trained in hypnosis knows that part of what we're supposed to do is build rapport and build trust and gain it on purpose. And so, did you have to do any of that?
If I did, I wasn't aware of it.
Exactly. And so that's the beauty of ACH is we're sitting here asking somebody, listen, I'm going to pay full 100 million% attention to you. And I don't care what you answer me, but whatever you're going to tell me, I'm going to work with. And that's the rapport building is, well, I want to know the ins and outs of this problem. And so she told us the ins and outs of them. And once she had laid them all out, the solution appeared out of what looks like the clear blue sky, but really it came out of the deepest part of her that wants the best for her, which is her subconscious mind. And did we have to force it or invite it or tell it or demand of it or tell her 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, now go into a trance and tell me what the answer is? No, he didn't have to do any of that. Moreover, she's being observed in a group, which is even more pressure. Okay, so I'm going to just pause and see, does anybody have any feedback on the actual demo? And then I'm going to tell you a little bit more about what happened, and then we'll take a break. Did everybody notice the unconscious pieces of Leah's responses? Do you know what that means to see the unconscious parts of it? I pointed a few of them out, right? When I said, oh, there she goes. Yeah.
Can I say what it feels like?
Yeah, tell us.
I disassociate. So I notice because I can see myself and I look off and I'm disassociating. Like I'm not looking at something, I'm staring off.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. That's exactly what happens. So the question makes you seek information, and that moment of seeking information is an invitation to trance. And if you repeat that enough times, it's called fractionation, and that fractionation creates hypnosis. So the questions themselves are inductions, which lead you into that subconscious space without having to do any fancy schmancy stuff. And do you feel kind of spacey now? Right. And do you, Gail, feel a little spaced out? Like, look at you.
Yeah, it feels like in a weird way, like, yeah, I mean, I've had therapy forever that goes nowhere because it's kind of like ping pong, like, what is it you're serving me and how am I supposed to serve it back? This felt like the opposite.
Nice. Exactly right. Beautiful. I couldn't have scripted that any better. That was amazing. Okay, so I'm going to tell you a little bit more about what happened from a theoretical standpoint, and then you'll digest it. And after the break, you can ask me questions if you want. So first of all, amazing, good job, well done. That one is one for the books. I'll be using that in courses to come. So thank you so much, both of you, for excellent contribution. So the interview, the hypnotic interview, this is what it is. The purpose of it is to understand what the problem really is, which Leah was the most perfect case study because she was very open about the fact that the problem is really not sunshine or making the time for it or getting outdoors. The problem was something else, which is I have a perception of myself as in a sensory whatever way, and I need to address that. That's the problem. Okay, so in doing that investigation of the problem, we're forcing the client to retrieve unconscious and known information. She knew that about herself, but she didn't really know how it applied to going outside. So that was kind of the purpose of the interview, was for her to get an opportunity to associate pieces of information inside of herself. So the fact of doing that association, which we did not force, which she did voluntarily, allows for trance, or as we said, unconscious moments, or I call them, and that's why this picture has knots in it, knots. So she had a knot in there that was like, oh, something about going outside, but I don't quite know what it is. Oh, but if I look behind it, there's a knot about clothes. And if I look behind that, there's a knot about perception of my sensory perception. So we're like 3 layers back now at a knot that created another knot, that created another knot that kept her from going out. So that was the process, was each question undid one knot until she got to the point of saying, fuck this, I'll just get some moo-moos and have different ones for different seasons, and that'll fix the whole thing. Then I'll know how to go out with no issues. That's how she solved it, was just undoing one knot after another. So conflicting realities present themselves, and then you solve them once you know what the conflict is. And that was why it was important to ask her, well, is it important to you to go outside? Is it a health concern? That's why I want people to state those things, even though they're so-called obvious. Because when she hears herself stating it, she's like, oh yeah, well, I definitely want it. It's non-negotiable. This is the reason why I want it. This is why it's important to me. And after she's laid out enough of those knots or enough of those contradicting realities, then she repieces them together towards a solution. So each knot that is untied breaks down the overall problem one piece at a time until the client is freed from their negative position, which she just did so beautifully. So now she connects herself to a new choice. So the investigation must meet the client at the problem, not the technique. Very important. The questions create momentum in the problem and makes the problem malleable. So that's the point of the hypnotic interview, is to create stretch and malleability around a problem until there's enough stretch that new opportunities or new options arise. And that's why what you ask or when you ask it really doesn't matter, as long as it continues to create that stretch. So the questions, oh, I already said that. So solution-based questions do not create stretch. That's the whole trick with solution-based questions, is solution-based questions are conscious. A solution-based question will always keep you in your conscious mind, because what we don't think Leah has thought of solution-based answers. Of course she has. So we want to avoid that, because we're not going for the solution. We're going for the malleability. That's the hypnosis part. So that's why questions need to dig into the problem. So why do we use the hypnotic interview? Symptom versus root cause. The Western model is oriented towards getting rid of the symptom, towards a coping mechanism. But that's not where the deeper solution really comes from. So we use the hypnotic interview to allow penetration into the real possibilities instead of the surface level coping mechanisms. And I'm not saying, by the way, I want everybody to really internalize this. I'm not here to knock thousands of people who work with coping mechanisms. We have CBT, we have breathing, we have meditation. Like there's a lot of people who invest their lives into that, and there's nothing wrong with it. The problem is when you depend on that, and then the underlying problem always bothers you. So, like, I use breathing techniques, I use all kinds of stuff, but not to solve problems, to do other things. So, like, CBT is an interesting example. It's like cognitive behavioral therapy, right? The thing with cognitive behavioral therapy is it's behavioral. So, it's at the level of how you behave. But the level of how you behave is not necessarily the level of your identity or of how you think of yourself. So, if you do a correction at that level, which is a symptom level, then the person carries the symptom with their coping mechanism, but they always carry the problem as well. That's when you get transference, right? So you might get someone to stop smoking, but they carry their original problem. So instead, they become a porn addict. Well, how did you really help them then? That's not helping. That's just moving the symptom around. So the whole point of this is we're not going to look towards solutions because the Western model wants us to erase symptoms, but not necessarily to correct the problem. That's what sets this apart from all of those other methods. And I just want to reiterate, those other things aren't bad. They help people. They help people in the moment. They help, kids who need to operate in schools and things like that. Like that's not a bad thing. But we also don't want to leave people suffering with their coping mechanism. So number 2, hypnotic suggestions, language patterns, confusion techniques. It's a lot to remember. Gail, did you have to remember anything? Did you even know exactly what she had said the whole time, or did you forget parts of it?
Oh, yeah, I would forget the certain words.
Right.
I'd remember like the emotion.
Exactly. You don't even need to know exactly what you're listening to. Half the time I'm confused in the session. I don't know what I'm talking about. I don't know what they're talking about. I mean, it's at that level. But that's because I'm not interested in confusion tactics or having a certain NLP approach, or I'm not trying to use any of those. All I'm doing is investigating, hypnotic interview. So I don't have to worry about remembering. I don't have to worry about what suggestion did I give her that she liked. And by the way, everybody, I don't know if her screen is frozen. No, it's not. It was interesting just watching Leah. She's really in a trance. She's like interested in her contents of her mind right now. You can just watch it. It's just interesting to observe. The trance continues. It doesn't just end when the session ends. So why else use the hypnotic interview? Because there's too much to do if you do it the traditional way. You have to do homework, you have to give her audios. Like realistically, if we give Leah an audio that's like, and today I go outside and see the sunshine, and today I go outside and see the sunshine, and I love the sunshine. I mean, won't she end up just fucking throwing that thing in the trash or calling me later and being like, I fucking hate your recording? She's not that kind of person. She's not going to take well to any of that. That's the traditional approach for hypnosis. Instead, now she's going to be like, ooh, this is fun. I can go organize my moo-moos and maybe buy myself a warm one for winter and have a blast. See, she likes that. So that's another reason hypnotic interview trumps everything else, because we don't want to exhaust their patience. We don't want to exhaust the client's patience. We don't want to, this is a good one. We don't want to repeat familiar models we hate from childhood. Why don't you do this? Why don't you do this? She even referenced that in the session. That's what people told me. That's another reason I think I probably don't want to do it. Right. We don't want to reinforce all of that stuff. This is a completely different method. Why use the hypnotic interview? Because we just cut down what could have been 10 visits or 3 visits literally to 25 minutes. Why would you ever do it any other way? A traditional therapist would have been like, oh, so in your childhood, they told you to go outside. So tell me more about that. Who told you that? And how did that make you feel? And then you'd be like circling the drain, thinking, I don't want to revisit that memory. I don't want to talk about that. I hate you. I hate therapy. That's where it goes, right? So we just cut through all of that. Why should I take her to a place that she doesn't want to go? That makes no sense. So I'm not going to do that. Negative hypnosis is not logical. That's the answer. It is just not logical to drag people to places they don't want to go. Rapport, pre-talk, suggestibility, deepeners, relaxation, way too much work. All we want to do is therapy. We just want to help her get out of it. That's it. That's all we did. Let's just get out of it right now. Come on. That's it. That's the hypnotic interview. All this thing about, yep.
What does that mean? Negative hypnosis. What does that mean?
Negative hypnosis is not logical. So as I said, like the traditional approach would be like, so who told you that when you were a child?
Okay, I got you
now she's talking
So
about
that's
something that doesn't make her feel good. Well, how is that going to take her towards a solution? It's just going to take her into a negative place. And by the way, I've done hundreds of hours of talk therapy. I don't know about the rest of you, but it's depressing. Like eventually you're thinking, why can't I move on? Why am I still here? Why do I still feel like shit? That's negative hypnosis. Then you just feel bad about yourself and the therapist and the money and time that you've spent. That's all negative hypnosis. When people come to see me, I want them to have that optimistic, joyful, like in the moment, super exciting feeling. That's what distinguishes me from armchair therapy. And that's what makes it magical, by the way. And that's why people write magical reviews, because they're so bored and sick of being negatively hypnotized and paying for it as well. I mean, that's another problem. Then they send you a bill for your negative hypnosis. You're like, so now it costs me $100 to feel like shit. Like, great. And I mean, I just want to reiterate again, I've used therapy in a good way. I'm not saying that nobody should be a therapist. Like when I got out of abuse and I had a severe PTSD, there was nothing wrong with having somebody to talk to and help me through it. That was helpful. But it didn't solve my problem. Okay. So there's a distinction between I need a therapist to get through and I need someone to support me right now and I need to vent. All good and well, no problem. But when you get to a different stage of your evolution where it's like, I don't know, I'm kind of tired of that. That's when we want to like really keep our eye on, okay, well, how can we make forward momentum instead of, keep on circling the drain?
I never considered like conventional therapy as a form of hypnosis, but I see the way it's not.
I mean, yeah, okay, I see what you
But it is. It's negative hypnosis is what you're saying.
I mean, and I would say TV is negative hypnosis. The mall is negative hypnosis. Watching the news is extremely negative hypnosis. Please don't watch the news if you do. Like that is really negative hypnosis meant to keep you, whatever, depressed, consuming, fat, medicated, blah, blah, blah. I mean, I could get on a real bandstand about that. But yeah, you're right. That is negative hypnosis. But yeah, so what I'm saying is hypnosis that people pay for that's worth something, let's not make it all of that stuff. Let's make it really unique and original and different. And I'm going to keep stretching that. So day 3, you'll really see me stretch that. And again, talking to people about what hypnosis is, what it isn't, blah, blah, blah. Did she really care about what we were doing? Did she care about if this is this kind of hypnosis or that kind? I don't think so. I think all she wants to do is go outside and have an easy time doing that. That's it. So all problems are inaccessible to the subject. Leah was just like the perfect case study of that. She just didn't quite know where the issue was. And once she found it, boom, it was easy to solve. So if the client's problem exists in the subconscious, which is inaccessible to her conscious mind, that when she tells you about that problem, she's using her rational mind to solve it, which is not where the solution is. So all she's going to give you is a guess to start with. That's why you need the hypnotic interview to go past that guess. And by the way, sometimes I'll get people guessing 20 times. Sometimes people guess for a fucking hour. It's okay. They'll guess as long as they need to, but eventually the truth will come out. So the hypnotic interview, like that was a small problem. If we had a lifelong, giant, more major problem, probably it would take longer than that, but not necessarily. So have you ever noticed how children do this very naturally? They get into a problem and they immediately come up with a conscious reason. Like, oh, such and such pushed me on the playground. And that's because she was playing with that person and I wanted the ball and you were in the way. And they have like a whole thing that you're like, where'd you come up with that? How do you know? How do you know that the other person just didn't get pushed this way or whatever? Like, it could be a lot of things, but a child will tell you right away their whole conscious rationalization of why something happened. Adults do the exact same thing. And this happened because of this, and my mom, and this person, and I didn't have the money, and I couldn't find the blah, and this, and that's why I have this problem. But that's not it. Kids do it really, really readily to save their asses. That's why they do it. That's why they go up to the teacher and say, and that's what happened. And so do grown-ups. And that's why I have this. And I save my ass. And does that work to actually solve problems? No, it doesn't. So the client doesn't really know what to do. That's why they come to you for help. That's why they pay you the big bucks, because they don't know what to do. They don't know what to do to get out of their conscious problem. So when you ask a question like, what's the problem? What they're going to give you is conscious venting, conscious emotions, conscious instructions. They'll give you their feelings. They'll give you totally random, non-associated things where you're like, I don't even know what you're talking about. They'll give you conclusions. They'll complain. They'll give you guesses. They'll give you assumptions and examples. And that's all fine, as long as you know now we're not quite there yet. So have no issues with what people say, as long as you, as the practitioner, have in mind where you're going with it, which is, I'm going through the interview to find out what's behind all of that. So when you have a client who's giving you their best guess, which they have no idea if it's true or false, or what really is going on, and the therapist now takes the symptomatic information and attaches a theory or a strategy to this best guess, now everybody is in the weeds. That's not a very logical process. So my little image here of all these people trying to help is, in the case of the car, it's probably good. But if this is your mind or your client's mind and everybody goes and starts fucking around with it, you're going to just make it worse. So you have to really stop trying to help, which Gail wanted to. She wanted to help, right? I don't remember what her solution-based questions were, but she had a few like, oh, well, let me help you with that. But then the question is, but what if that wasn't really where the help was? Well, then how would that be helpful? So it's really hard to get this in your mind, but you have to not care about helping the client. I mean, I just really want you to like deeply think about that. You have to really detach yourself from finding a solution or needing the solution to appear, because as long as you're invested in the client, their subconscious can't really fully appear. So it really requires of you, this whole hypnotic interview, to be detached. And I don't mean it in a callous way, like I don't care about my clients, because I care about everybody and I care about results and I care about success and I care about, my reputation. I do. And I care about clients being well. But in the moment of the session, I don't care. And if I do care, I fuck it up for them. And in the few cases where I see myself being like, well, why can't I get this person past this problem or this question or whatever, those are the people who are more stuck with me because I'm worried about it. So you have to learn in this method to detach from your clients and not be invested in them personally. If you are feeling pressure, if you need to do something, you are trying to do something specific, and that is blocking hypnosis from occurring. So I want you to trash all of those ideas, giving advice, suggestions, caring about them, following up with them, making sure they're okay, hierarchy of you being more important than them and knowing more than them, coaching them, everything. Put that all aside and just do the hypnotic interview. That's the key to ACH. Okay, so this is the last slide before our first break, which is, I think a lot of you know, and some of you probably don't know, that my PhD is actually in classics. I studied, or philosophy. I studied the ancient world, which is Plato, Socrates, all of those super old texts. And there's one kind of hallmark of the Socratic dialogue, which is in every single dialogue, of which there are 39, over 2,000 pages of text, in every single one of these dialogues, what happens is Socrates, the main character, asks the interlocutors, they're called, the people he's talking to, what is virtue? And then they say back to him what virtue is. And then he says something like, and so what do you mean by that? And it goes on, just like the hypnotic interview. And what Plato called that form of dialogue was this thing, the stingray effect. So here's the stingray. And the stingray effect was that whole thing of like, when Socrates asked the question enough times, at the end, the interlocutor would be like, I don't know. I don't know what virtue is. I thought I knew, but I don't. And that freeze moment where it's like the stingray stings you, that's ACH. That's exactly what ACH is allowing the questions themselves to create that mental overload in the client to where they realize, I actually don't think that's the problem. And when they think, oh, that's not the problem, then they can think about the solution. So this whole thing of Q&A, Socratic questioning, is a confusion tactic. It's a deepener. It's an overload tactic. It's an induction tactic. And if anyone here is trained in traditional hypnosis, you know that these are things people spend months, years, books teaching you. How to create confusion, how to create deepeners, how to create overload, how to create induction. So instead of making them up or faking them, all you need to do is use the hypnotic interview and do them naturally through the questions. So that's the stingray effect, which is what the hypnotic interview amounts to. Okay. That's module 1. You guys want to do questions now or later? Let's just do them now. Anyone have questions on that? Yeah, that was like the perfect sized problem and solution for that module.
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, me?
Leah, did you have one first? Yeah, so Leah, then Gail, and then next person.
So I find it, okay, so if I understood what you just said about the stingray effect, let me put up my gun, is the goal of that is to kind of, how I interpreted it was to ask them a lot of questions, to confuse them, kind of overwhelm them, so they're like short circuits, so they're like, what really is the problem? Is that correct?
I mean, the only piece that I didn't like in your summary was somewhere in there you said, in order to. And I don't think of it that way. I'm not trying to confuse anybody. I don't want people to be confused. I don't want to create any certain thing. It's just the natural side effect of asking curious questions. That's it.
What if someone gets overwhelmed? What if someone gets really overwhelmed and they like, I can imagine if someone is, especially if they're coming to you for a problem that they thought was their problem for a really long time, and they're like, wait, what? That's not my problem. My problem really is, imagine, I know that I'm neurodivergent and that the sensory is an issue, but imagine I didn't even realize, and I just dawned on me today, like, oh my God, all these things. I wonder if someone like really cries and has a really, really intense emotion, you just let them, obviously you just let them, but you just let them, you sit quiet, or would you say, and why are you crying now?
So I think at the end of day 2, you'll have a way better grasp on that, because obviously what I just did in a 2-hour demo is not the totality of things. And people come with rape and people come with childhood abuse. And like, these are not the same velocity of problem as, I want to go outside. So yes, obviously we're going to prepare for a wider range and a different type of reaction. So I am going to prepare you for that over the next 2 days. That's one answer. Answer number two is, I also don't think it helps to evaluate size of problem, because once again, everybody's size of problem is an idea that they have. So something that you might think is a giant problem turns out to be something easy to solve, and vice versa. Sometimes you have someone who says, oh, and I have this tiny problem, and you think like, oh, I can solve that in an hour. And then they come to the session and you're like, oh, you didn't mention any of that. That's a lot, right? So a lot of what's happening here is so-called extemporaneous, which means in the moment, which is why you being prepared physically, mentally, and emotionally is the most important piece of this, so that you can hold on to this container and not get pressured, swept away, upset, blah, blah, blah. And I'm going to help you to, prepare for that as we go along as well. Third, I'll get to you in a second, Elise. Third, I just did a demo for the fun of it, just to prove to you how good ACH works and how fast it is. But in my practice, there's various steps people follow before they actually come for a session. And the steps are, first, get to know me on social media or on my website, find out what I'm good at, find out what my qualifications are. Okay, now they're starting to have some trust in me. Then they fill out a questionnaire. Questionnaire tells me what's their problem as a beginning step. If they fill it out sort of lightly without any real interest, I'm not sure I'm going to work with them, because I really need them to be like self-aware and ready for this experience. Then they get a free 45-minute call with me. I mean, I'm pretty expensive at this point. Like, I'm several $100 an hour, So for a free 45 minutes, I must be getting something out of it myself, which is I'm making sure they have the bandwidth to do this journey with me. So they think that they're at my discovery call so that they can test me out, which is fine. I don't care if they think that. Well, really what's happening is I'm checking on them at that point to make sure that they're not, psychotic or bipolar or, having some kind of really unpredictable mind situation going on that I will feel unequipped to deal with should they actually decide to work with me. So I won't work with anybody who's on that psychosis spectrum, schizophrenic, multiple personalities, none of that. So there's that. So we have and then there's an intake form before they actually come to see me, which will also ask them directly, have you ever had this? Have you ever had this? Have you ever done this? Are you under psychiatric care? Are you medicated? So I'm not just playing around here, let's just solve your problem. I'm really studying this person right up until the moment that they show up for me with the session, so that I feel very confident that whatever happens, I have the bandwidth to handle it. So, I mean, I made it look simple just there, and that's the point. It's supposed to be that to make it fun and exciting. But yes, in real practice where you're collecting money for this, you have various steps you need to follow. And also you need to, have a little bit more groundwork than I've given you so far. So there is something called an ab reaction drill, which is something I'm going to give you tomorrow afternoon. And that's if somebody gets really derailed, if they start crying and whatever, especially if you're on Zoom, you better fucking do something, don't just leave them, don't just let them go, don't let them hang up. No, you're responsible at that point. This is a real career. So you do have to be trained in that, and I will explain that to you tomorrow. So that's a very good question that you asked. But yeah, I mean, the kind of quick answer is people can go through their emotions. I've had people literally cry from minute 1 to minute 120, and then their problem is gone. And they've just literally cried for 2 straight hours. And I've had people just have outbursts. I've had people scream. I've had people bang on their desk. I've had various things. I mean, as long as it's safe for both of you and it's helping and it's diffusing the problem, then yeah, you can wait and go with it. But you need all those other pieces in place so that it doesn't freak you out or catch you off guard, and so that you're not working outside your scope. Good question. Okay, I think it was Gail, then Elise.
I was just wondering, what is it that stops people from organically doing this for themselves. And I keep thinking, is
Right.
it ego? Is it the need to be right? Because I think back to when, and I'm not a therapist, but for many, 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 many years, I was a trained investigator. And in nursing homes, I would investigate allegations of abuse. And when I'd have my findings and I'd bring it to the administrator, these are people that are allegedly there to care about somebody, and I'd point something out that's occurring, it would be, yeah, but you don't know her family. And and it was like all this stuff. And it's like, so is that the reason why you guys aren't giving her Medicaid? And it was so interesting because if I just hit them with, I need you to do this.
Right.
I need you to, they wouldn't do it.
Yeah. Okay. So I like where you're going with this. It's a really interesting question. And it also begs the question, why can't you ACH yourself? Why does an ACH work without a therapist? And I mean, to some extent, I can do it on myself at this point, but I still go to others because that's the whole funny, weird thing about the subconscious is it's walled off even from us. If we could unwall it in a flash, we would all be millionaires. We would all unlock all of our, abundance blocks and all of our pain and everything else, but we can't. So why is the human person built that way? I mean, what do you guys think of that? And it's in the next series of slides, so you might as well, you can either wait for later or answer it right now. But why are we made that way?
Self-protection, I guess.
Yeah. And why is it self-protecting? How does it work? What is the subconscious really great at?
Hiding.
What?
Hiding. Oh.
Hiding, yes. And why? Why does it hide? What does it want us to do when it's hiding?
Not look at it.
Yeah, but why? Like, what's the good of that?
To protect us.
Yeah, from what?
Yeah.
You're onto it. You're all onto it. The subconscious mind, all it wants is for you to remain alive. And once you're alive, it wants you to remain yourself alive. And so its view of who you are alive is really a facsimile of who you were yesterday. And who you were yesterday is a facsimile of who you were the day before. So the subconscious's main directive is replicate, 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 replicate. And replication creates patterns, which create habits, which create self-sabotage, which is why I'm in business. I mean, that's the bottom line. So what's the point of going to a professional hypnotist? Is I know how the subconscious works and I know how it's going to try to evade me. And I'm not worried about that because I know that if I let it be and don't fuck with it and don't pretend like, oh, I can help it, let me help you. If I just investigate it, then it will rise to the occasion and say, oh, it's a little stretched out now. It's not exactly a facsimile yesterday. Oh, let's do something else. But I have to give it that opportunity. And if I start to muddle with it or mess with it or prod with it, then it will tell me to go F off and the person will leave just as they arrive because that's what the subconscious is good for, replication. I mean, another piece that I just want to say that's very important is the subconscious, complex as it is quite juvenile.
Yes.
Like, it's not an adult like all of us sitting here. It's a child. And I mean, a child is extremely willing to learn new things, but not if you don't expose it. Like, that's why it's so important to take children into the world and take them to even things they don't like and give them opportunity. Because if a child is held into a certain small box, which is what I believe and what our family believes and what tradition believes, they don't have any possibility to grow. And the subconscious is just like that box child. It only knows what it knows. And a professional hypnotist is meant to say, hey, but you didn't think of this. And hey, what about this? And not in a direct way by saying, and also you're a non-smoker. It's meant to, the way we do it here in ACH is by stretching out those beliefs that it's holding that keep you in that replication pattern until it itself says, oh, I didn't think of that. just like a child does. Like when I took my 6.5-year-old Scout to the Modern Art Museum 3.5 years ago, she saw the picture of the whale hunt, on a big screen. She was like, Mom, what are they doing? Why are they doing that? So I told her, well, they're hunting the whale to get the oil and to eat it and whatever. And she was like, oh, that's so disgusting. I'm so not into that. And so I asked her, well, where do you think your hamburgers come from? And she was like, what? You never told me that we kill animals to make hamburgers. And guess what? She became a vegetarian that very day, and she never went back. That's kind of how the subconscious works, is like, but you didn't tell me that, but you didn't tell me that. Oh, now that I know that, I can expand. And that's what happened to her in that moment, was like, oh, I think I'll be a vegetarian. And now she is. And now I have to be one because she is. True story. That's a true story. But the subconscious is juvenile. It's only 7 or 8 years old, just like she was then. And the only way to give it more possibilities is to say, well, here's some more information. Here's some more. What do we do with more and more and more information? Oh, let's synthesize that into a new solution. That was a long-winded answer. Did that help?
That's good.
And we're going to talk about it more this afternoon. Elise, did you have a question?
I guess it was just a simple question, but we'll probably get to it eventually. In that situation, in the last session, would you have said something like, where do you think this came from? Or is that too like hypnosis lingo?
I don't like asking.
I thought that.
Yeah, that's an excellent question, Elise. And I think every question has a place, but I don't like to make people, what's the word, give themselves a prognosis, like I don't like to ask people things, like, well, what do you think where do you think the problem started? Because that's conscious. It's not that interesting to ask someone, where do they think it came from? Because, like, what, you think they didn't think of that a million times already? They did. But I will sometimes ask somebody something more open-ended, like, well, what do you understand by that? Or when's the first time you felt that way? Because that's not exactly asking her, well, where's the problem starting? I'm just saying, okay, so somebody comes to me like with stage fright. That's a very popular one. I do like to ask them, well, when's the first time you felt it? And then it's an instant regression. Oh, I remember when I was in, grade 1 and my teacher surprised me with blah, blah, blah. And that made me, and did I say to them, okay, close your eyes, scene number, like in the thing that I'm not supposed to use the label for this type of therapy, but the one I'm talking about, where they say, okay, instantly, what's the scene? And now give me another scene. And it's like it's almost an aggressive form of regression, which I'm not saying it doesn't work. I like it. I've used it for myself, and it's kind of effective, but a lot of people resist that, and a lot of people don't like that, and it's awkward when somebody says, I don't have a scene, or like, I don't know what you're talking about, or like, is this the right scene? And it's like, oh, why go through all that? But if you say to someone, well, where's the first time you felt it, and they give you a regression moment, well, that's perfect, then I'll use it. You have to be kind of careful between imperatives, like, you must tell me, or spaciousness, like, what do you think, or when did you first feel this? And I think you'll develop that instinct as you watch more demos and hear me talk more about the format of the session.
I like in the beginning how you said, for the people that haven't done hypnosis, it's easier because you have to I'm like, my mind has to unlearn some stuff. So I think that was really cool. It's so true. It's like, so wipe the screen out and start again.
And honestly, at least for you, because I know you already have like people that you do this for a business and you already charge people, like, that is the real key, is how do I just forget this training that I got that told me it has to look and feel a certain way? Because if I could do it without all of that smoke and mirrors, in a really natural, less pressurized way, for one thing, I become a standout in my community because I'm the only one doing that. And for another, you don't have to stress out and worry so much. It's just like so much easier on you. I mean, I'll leave for our little 20-minute break here on this note. Like, why wouldn't we just bank on magic if we can? Like, it's not that easy to do that until you do it. Like a huge proposition that's so simple at the bottom of it. Like, look around at all the people you know, look at all the careers people pick. Who's picking magic? I mean, I am, even with all this education behind me. Like, that's the difference between, let me use the method, let me tell you let me figure it out with you, let me give you a tape, let me give you an audio. That's all me. Let me do it. Let my information, let my training, like, who the fuck am I in front of somebody's problem that they've had for 20 years? Like, even Leah, who am I, a trained, Oxford educated PhD hypnotist? What does that have to do with her moo situation? Like, literally nothing. All I can do by telling her that I know something about that is enfranchise her from her own self-knowledge. She knows who she is. I don't. I have to get really comfortable with that. Like, that's really at the bottom of ACH, is put your ego down, put your knowledge down, put your degrees and your education down, put everything you think you know about yourself down, and let the client be central. And by the way, when I told you you're all self-selected, that's what I mean, is like, you're not here because you're the kind of person who needs a gold star to help someone. You're here because you want to learn a fast and effective way to actually solve people's problems for them and with them. You would have picked another venue and another person other than this training if you were, the ego-driven type. Hi, Jim. Go for it.
Well, some of us still resort to magic.
Has his excellent. Jim has his magic wand in his office, which I need to get one too. And you're all going to need one because you're all becoming magicians. Like, that's what's so beautiful about ACH, is it's magic and it works every time. I haven't had one case this year that it hasn't worked. This whole year, it's now the end of February. And did I have that when I started? No, I didn't. It took some practice and time. But I'm just telling you, it's really super dependable because magic is magic. And I'm not magic, and the method's not magic. The subconscious mind is magical. So that's all we're doing, is creating space for that. Okay, Gail, last question, then we'll take a break.
Okay, so thinking, it feels to me like what I'm hearing is almost like, it feels like really primal.
Yeah.
Like change is inherently
correct.
Terrifying, like almost old brain stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, it feels like that's the other end of the spectrum. It's like preventing yourself because whatever the situation is, it will be worse if I venture out.
That's how the human mind is completely and 100% historically reptile brain, is to just be scared and keep yourself safe.
Yeah.
And the history of that is kind of simple. It's like, well, when we were in the wild, literally reptilian, what would your mind do every morning? Well, over there, there's coyotes. Over there, it's dark. Over here, it's scary. Don't do this. Don't do this. Maybe there's some berries over here. Why don't you go get those? And that's what the subconscious mind was good at. So now here we are, evolved in civilized society, thousands of years out of that, and your brain does the exact same thing. Yeah. Oh, I can't pay this bill. Oh, I can't be friends with this person. Oh, I'm not good enough for that. It does the exact same thing, but the topics are not coyotes and darkness. The topics are, money and fear and trauma and whatever. So
it's so interesting to me how the fallback seems to be survival.
Yes, that's
and case after case after case after case, year after year, pointing out the obvious to somebody about this is occurring. Here's the evidence.
Right.
And instead of going, oh, well, let's fix it organically, it's that automatic fallback of, yeah, well, here's why she was abused.
Yeah, exactly. You're right.
But I mean, it just freaks me out to that extent that we're still doing this.
Yeah, and that's why I told you when we started that this is a revolutionary act coming to my training, because I agree with that. It's fucking ridiculous. and it disempowers women, minorities, children, teens, adults, men, everybody. And I put those in order of what I think is really depressing. I mean, if we taught children in kindergarten, hey, this is your subconscious, this is how you can work with it, we wouldn't have, adults who need eons of therapy. But nobody has educated us about all of this. So I absolutely 100% agree with you. It's ridiculous. It makes no sense. And also, there's a very, obvious and kind of easy path out as long as you're willing to do what I'm suggesting right now, which is take a big leap of faith away from our educations, our indoctrination, the medical structure, big pharma, all kinds of things, and go with the magic of the mind.
It's so interesting to me. I feel like we've evolved in so many ways, except that, which is really significant. It's like, it's not eat or be eaten.
Exactly.
Why do we still,
Exactly. Why are we forbidden from our joy? Why are we stuck in our negative loop? That's the answer why. And by the way, this is free bonus. Now that you know that, it will shift in your own life. So I know that's not why you're here, but it will certainly help you.